The dog suddenly began acting strangely, desperately trying to prevent his owner from leaving for work. As if sensing something terrible was about to happen, the dog barked frantically at his owner. But when the man approached with concern, the dog kept backing away. Even more unusual, this dog, who had never played fetch before, suddenly appeared at the station panting, ball in mouth. It was the first time he had ever properly played fetch with his owner, seemingly trying desperately to make him stay. The man proudly showed off Hachi to the station manager, before happily boarding his train. Unable to speak, the dog could only stand on the platform, barking after him repeatedly, his voice full of concern and reluctance to part. The professor had no idea this would be their final goodbye. Hachi had once been an Akita dog of unknown origin. While being transported from Japan to America, his crate accidentally fell to the ground. The workers didn't notice, so Hachi pushed open the damaged crate and escaped. In the empty train station, Hachi met the kind-hearted professor. The professor tried to take Hachi to a shelter, but the staff coldly said they could only keep him for 2 weeks at most. With no other choice, the professor temporarily took Hachi in. His wife, however, strongly opposed keeping a dog. They had once owned a dog before, and when it died, the pain was unbearable. She didn't want to go through that heartbreak again. The professor asked around among friends to see if anyone would adopt Hachi, but everyone refused. Left with no alternatives, he brought Hachi back home again. He placed Hachi in the doghouse, carefully laying out bedding for him, but Hachi whined longingly toward him. Worried his wife would discover everything, the professor brought Hachi inside. To prevent him from making noise, he turned on the television and sat with Hachi in the living room. When his wife came downstairs after hearing the TV, the professor had already fallen asleep on the couch. As she approached to turn off the television, Hachi came over and licked her hand. The wife instantly fell in love with Hachi, and afterward, he officially became part of the professor's family. As Hachi grew up, he would accompany the professor to the station every day, then return at 5 p.m. to wait for him after work. This continued for 5 years. One day, Hachi unusually brought his ball to the professor, desperately trying to prevent him from going to work. The professor thought Hachi was just being playful, happily played with him briefly, then left for work. At school, while teaching his students, the professor suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. He struggled to stand, but collapsed helplessly to the floor, never to wake again. At 5 p.m. that evening, Hachi once again came to the station to wait for the professor, but even as darkness fell, the professor never appeared. What the professor, now in heaven, didn't know was that Hachi would continue to wait for him at that station for the next 10 years.